Praise be Jesus and Mary. After having celebrated in the liturgy the mysteries of our faith, the principal mysteries during Christmas and then Easter season, we just finished last Sunday with Pentecost. We now celebrate the greatest mystery of our faith, the Most Holy Trinity. Though God is one, he is not solitary. Great mystery. There's three divine persons in the one Godhead, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. With our human reason alone, we can know about God. We can know that God exists. We can know various attributes of God, that he is one, that he's eternal, all-powerful, omnipotent, all-present, omnipresent, all-wise. But we could never know, even in a million years, with our human reason alone, that God is three in one God, three persons in one God. The mystery of the Trinity is beyond human reason. That each of the divine persons is truly distinct, one from the other. So the Father is not the Son, nor the Holy Spirit. The Son is not the Father, nor the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is not the Father, nor the Son. Truly distinct persons. Yet each of them having the fullness of the one divine nature. God had to reveal this to us, and so he did. And this he did out of love for us, that we might come to know God, the one true God, to love him in his most intimate being as the triune God. Now, we remember in our catechism being taught the Trinity. Hopefully we learned that, those years of catechesis, the most important truth of our faith. We learned that from all eternity, the Father generates or begets the Son. From all eternity, the Son is generated or begotten. And from all eternity, the Holy Spirit proceeds or spirates, is breathed, as it were, between the two. The Father and the Son, their love for each other. The Holy Spirit is the personal love uniting them both. Actually, this is beyond catechism, too. It gets into, deep Catholic theology. Whole treatises written on this great mystery. Analogies have been used to describe the Trinity. The first one that comes to our mind, perhaps, is the shamrock, of St. Patrick. And he had been preaching to the pagans, standing on a hill filled with, three-leaf clovers beneath his feet. He made use of these things to teach the pagans, the mystery of the Trinity. Or there's the image of water, H2O, one substance, but which can have different forms, three different forms, liquid, solid, or gas. But this is a dangerous analogy, you could say, as almost all analogies are, because the substance of water, cannot take shape or take form in these three different ways at the same time. So it's not like we can apply that to the Trinity, like the Trinity, the persons of the Trinity. Or we could say in this sense, the Trinity, God cannot, manifest himself in the form of, one form and another, but there's still be one person instead of three distinct persons. Anyway, I hope I'm not confusing you and make this more confusing than, you were before you came. So I apologize, but we'll try to make some sense, remind ourselves of these very fundamental truths. I was hoping to say simple truths, but not so simple to understand, but very fundamental. And ultimately they are simple when it comes down to it, but we have to be humble and filled with faith when we speak of these things. So H2O, that's an analogy that isn't all that great. There is the analogy of the family, which is, I think, one of the best. The great love that husband and wife have for each other. So we have two distinct persons, and that love for each other is so great that they give that love a name. You could say the child is born, little Johnny, little Mary, for example. Three persons forming a unity of the family. But here too, we fall short, of course. There is a real unity here, but the three persons in the family have three separate human natures, not the one nature. Whereas in God, they share the one divine nature, and each have the fullness of that divine nature. Theologians also speak about, again in human terms, how God, say, has a thought about himself in a way similar to we could have a thought of ourselves in our minds. Our thoughts about ourselves, are not perfect, but God's thought of himself is infinitely perfect. It's like a word, spoken, you could say, in the divine mind. The word is generating, begetting the Son, who is the eternal Word. And this word, this thought, you could say, in the divine mind is so perfect that it has to exist, because the perfection in God is to exist, must include existence. God is existence, you could say. He doesn't say, I have existence, I am existence, I am who I am. In the Old Testament, he revealed to Moses. So that thought, that word is so perfect, it exists. And then the Father and the Son love each other, and the one divine nature that is theirs. And this love is so perfect, infinite, that it too exists personally as the Holy Spirit. And we could read treatises on this, explaining this, but in the end, we'll never fully comprehend this great mystery. I mean, if we could, with our finite minds, what God would that be if we could fully grasp this greatest mystery about God? But thankfully, we can at least understand this mystery, begin to understand, I should say. And we can console ourselves that great doctors of the church like St. Augustine also struggled greatly with this mystery. He spent over 30 years or so, writing or trying to write his treatise on the Trinity, De Trinitate. And one day he was walking by the seashore. As you heard this story about him, he was pondering the mystery of the Trinity, really struggling in a particular way, when he saw a child amusing himself in carrying some water from the sea and pouring it into a little hole on the seashore. Augustine asked the little child, what he was doing, and the little child replied, I'm trying to empty the sea into this little hole. Then you're trying to do an impossible thing, Augustine replied. And then the child, in turn, not more impossible than for you to understand or explain the mystery of the Blessed Trinity. And after those words, the child disappeared. So like St. Augustine, we should try to grow in our understanding of this mystery of our faith and the Trinity. Perhaps read his book, but always, again, with great humility and faith. God revealed this mystery to us, not just to ponder it, but in some ways to live it, as all the mysteries of our faith should be lived. Everything we profess in the Creed is to be lived out in our lives, including this great mystery of the Trinity. And in this case, it would be our living out the Trinitarian life in some ways, entering into the very life of the Trinity, an experience here on this earth, a real foretaste of heaven, which is what we all desire. One who succeeded in doing this among the saints was Saint Elizabeth of the Trinity. She was a French Carmelite nun. She died in 1909 at the age of 26. And once she said, "I confide to you the secret which has made my life an anticipated heaven. The belief that a being whose name is love is dwelling within us at every moment of the day and night, and that he asks us to live in his company." And she also said, "At every moment of the day and night, the three divine persons are dwelling within you. You possess the sacred humanity of Jesus only when you receive Holy Communion. But the divinity, that essence which the blessed adore in heaven, is in your soul." One time, St. Elizabeth wrote to her sister on receiving news about the baptism of her first niece. She wrote, "I feel full respect for this little temple of the Blessed Trinity. If I were near her, I would kneel down to adore him who dwells within her." So this is a marvelous description of the divine indwelling, that the Holy Trinity dwells in the souls of the just, those who live in the state of grace. And St. Elizabeth's whole spiritual life hinged on this great truth of the spiritual life. The most Holy Trinity dwells in your souls in grace. It's up to us, though, to recognize and appreciate that presence of God within our souls, and of course do nothing ever to destroy that relationship, that presence of God within our souls through sin, serious sin in particular, but also to cultivate that spirit of practicing the presence of God always within us, always, you could say, there for us, dwelling in our souls, and we, all too often, ignoring their presence within us. So let's follow the example of St. Elizabeth of the Trinity. Live our lives here on earth as an anticipated heaven. You could say with one foot in heaven, the other foot here on earth, by living in this mystery of the Trinity, the Trinitarian life, the heavenly life, communion with God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, dwelling in our souls. As I mentioned at the beginning, God is one but not solitary, and we too were made in his image, not to be solitary, not separated, not isolated from one another, but for communion, with others. And that communion, that foretaste of the Trinitarian life and the heavenly life, is desperately needed today. Praise be Jesus and Mary.